Greetings, grande, greetings. Where is my harmonica? It's not near. I was not expecting this to work again, but I'm on the computer, so that's exciting. Yeah, I wanted to do this a little differently, so let's see what we can do here. Hi, it is another Sunday, female Reverence Sunday that we're getting together for here. I'm going to do something a little different. Okay. This is backwards, so. All right. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here when you do join. So today's video is going to be about witches, witchcraft, and some great mothers that we may or may not. Yeah, this is have fun with me getting ready for this live. I'm not totally prepared, but that's okay. It is what it is, right? No, I don't like that either. Okay, so I'm going to start over. No, I'm not going to start over. It's okay. It is okay. I'm learning as we go. Not like looking in a mirror. It's a little confusing. Okay, I like it. That's good enough. Yeah, that's all right. So, I'm going to grab the singing bowl real quick. Be right back. Okay. Grab the singing bowl. Have a little sound before we begin. And then we're going to get into some reverence of the great mothers. So yes, today will be a little bit about witches and witchcraft and some great mothers that we may or may not know or have forgotten about. That was an interesting sound. Okay, so we're getting towards the witchy season. I wanted to wear my hat too, so maybe I'll put my hat on top. There we go. That's fun. Okay, it's October and it's almost All Hallows Eve. So just to clarify, it's All Hallows Eve. We do call it Halloween. And then there are other groups and cultures that celebrate honoring ancestors that have transitioned. And this is something that we'll see in many cultures, not necessarily a specific time of year, like what the time of year we're in right now, but in general, you will find different cultures that will honor passed on ancestors and lineage, right? Like the lineage. And the lineage used to be handed down through the mothers, the great mothers specifically. Things were matriarchal. And this is where we kind of lead into the witches and witchcraft. But things were matriarchal. And we know from even patriarchal history that great mothers and women or females would get from dowries to land, and the wealth or the caregiving was specifically given to females. And we'll see this with the word husbandry or husband, because husbandry is actually a form of like farming, taking care of the land. And this ended up becoming a name to represent somebody in your life specifically, to then decide if you were married, quote, single or widowed. So, when it comes to witches and witchcraft, if you don't know, and I've talked about it before, we start with witches because witchcraft came after witches. You can see by the name. So, originally, witches were midwives, sages, medicine women. I like to simplify it by just saying medicine women. And that became stolen and usurped by not only religion, but patriarchy and even capitalism. So it started as going after specifically wealthy women, women with land, women with a lot of gold, silver, jewels, specifically land, and then the house within it. So one of the first things that started happening were people who were in charge of, say, the town would accuse a medicine woman of witchcraft. And they would find ways to then convict her of such behavior, so to speak. And it could be, we'll also see this is predominantly where the justice system that we see today originated, right? Where we have you have a conviction, and then you have a trial, and then you have a sentencing, and then the sentence is carried out. So for these females, they were accused. Then the trial was actually done by somebody who either accused them or would benefit from them being accused of being a witch. And they could come up with all kinds of reasons, but no matter how much the woman, the female, denied such accusations, torture would then happen. And so once there is a story where, I'm going to find it here in the book, but there's a story where a female was accused of witchcraft. She denied it and then eventually admitted it because she had been severely tortured. And we'll find that a lot of grimoires, spell castings, stories around the devil were specifically crafted by the accuser. So the accuser would say, this female was talking to the devil. And she would be like, no, I wasn't. I was taking care of my cat, or I was foraging in the woods, something along those lines. And they would say, no, no, we saw that you were performing this spell and you invoked this demon. And they would say, no, I absolutely was not doing that. But after extreme torture, not only would they admit it, but they would give details. And it was usually given whatever they had been accused of, they would recite back to the accuser. And then that would become the solidification for basically bringing harm to them, taking their land and taking their valuables and such. So there are several resources around this, and I did share a lot of this with you all. And so in early medieval England, there were female clan leaders who exercised matriarchal rights in law giving and law enforcement. The Magna Carta of Chester called them idiuces de witch, judges who were witches. So not only were there clans of medicine women, so many of those who looked into education, so astronomers, anthropologists, what we consider like sociologists, mathematicians, these were all prominent women, and they weren't called witches. They were not called witches. They were just females with education. They were called teachers or midwives or doulas. I mean, and these are most of the names we give them now. But that's why I tried to kind of minimize it or solidify it to one word, which is medicine women, because medicine can be given in many different forms. It's not just something you take. It can be rest, it can be medicine, it can be knowledge. There's a lot of ways to bring in medicine. So again, the names of witches were Incantrix, Lamia, Saga, Maga, Malficia, Sortlinia, Strix, Venficia, and many other names. There's also hags, fairies, sirens, sibyls, okay? Prophetesses. Those were all names pre witch and witchcraft, okay? And there's a saying that witch comes from wise, but according to some of the etymology, it's not specific, and that would be to one group. But also, yes, we were called wise women, and I'm just going to turn my phone on silent. And all these other names came later. And one of the things that some people don't know is that the Pope made saints out of rich witches, but poor witches were burned. So that's the other thing. So you'll see this history of wealthy females losing their rights as human beings, basically, by being called witches. Those predominantly around religion would have celebrations in their houses with their food, gold, jewels, and land, and they kept it. So, a lot of what we see today when we talk about like inherited privilege, it wasn't just inherited, it was stolen and then inherited. And then those who took over that stolen land and wealth passed it on to their children or heirs, as you want to say. And so this went on for quite a while. The Inquisition was actually part of this. I had said this before just in theory, but now I have some actual proof to back that. But also, once all the wealthy, so I want to find the story in here where it's specific around a wealthy group of people and where it eventually shifted. So once basically all the wealth around that community had disappeared, then less wealthy people were being accused. Also, if you weren't good looking or you were older, you could be accused of being a witch. So we're looking at erasing a lot of memories, recipes. Just a side note, receipt and recipe come from the same root word. This is where we actually got the name receipt. It came from recipes that were given by prophetesses and so-called witches and wise women, medicine women. So when we say I have the receipts, what we're saying is we have the original recipe. We found where this original recipe came from, this story came from. So I like to mention that because we were the receipts. The wise women were the receipts. They had given the said recipe. They were the receipts. Okay. So we're finding a lot of evidence to things that are being remembered and being uplifted by I don't want to say that, but by females and by women of today. Also, it is something that is in the truth of her words. Okay. I'm not talking about like somebody making something up, but using critical thinking, watching nature, practicing something. And they may not have it written down somewhere where they can pull it back up and say, here, I wrote it down, because that was something also we didn't do. So I wonder sometimes if the pen, because the pen has erased our history in the Americas, making us come from somewhere else and erasing a lot of our um, lineage, but also erasing knowledge and certain practices. Okay. And that is on purpose. That is literally on purpose so that others can have it and others don't have it. All right. So give me just a moment. Okay. So here we go. Any unusual ability in women instantly raised a charge of witchcraft. So there's a story of a woman. I don't know if you all have ever seen this, but it's called river surfing, where you like tie a surfboard or a boogie board to a piece of wood or around a rock, and then the river is flowing, so you always have this movement, and then you can get on it and kind of surf. So in this uh in Newberry, a woman was seen doing that. And because it was so abnormal, they literally employed soldiers to go and get her and unalive her because she had figured out how to surf on water. So any of those type of things, like creating something new. And my one of my moms makes a joke when she says, I use some whiteout. Don't call me a witch. Because you make something disappear with some whiteout and now you're a witch. And that's how, like, I make fun of it, but that's how simply somebody could be considered a bad witch. And let's just say that, bad witch. Now, here's something that a lot of people don't know. It was generally agreed that any woman with dissimilar eyes as a witch, where most people had dark eyes and a swarthy complex, as in Spain and Italy, pale blue eyes were associated with witchcraft. Many claimed any female with red hair was also a witch. So it started becoming like popular to accuse somebody of being a witch in that way because one was kind of like redirection and the other was ultimately to gain their wealth. Now, moving on. So the Inquisition went into this and many, many, many. So in the book by Dan Brown, The Da Vinci Code, he talks about how 50,000 women, females, were persecuted and unalived due to being considered witches or something basically bad. Well, the theory is you add a couple zeros to that, so more like 500,000, but many, many, many females. And in here, there are a few names. So Anne Marie de George, she was from, let me see here. I might be missing that sentence. But this was okay. Anne Marie de George, she denied making a devil's pact until she was so tortured that she was justly forced to give an account of herself. And this is what I was talking about. So a lot of like old spells and certain grimoire stories come from these forced accounts of witchcraft or being a witch. We also have Catherine de Lort. She was also forced to confess of the power to make people speak the truth through. She was forced to confess to make people speak the truth. This is also what they considered like by these harsh torturings. It was something miraculous because it would make people speak the truth when actually it just made people agree to what you had accused them of so that you would stop doing it. And I haven't mentioned this, but I will. Some females, because of their great wealth, were able to save their lives by paying to get out of court, be out of being accused for certain practices, but they were still either shunned or kicked out. And there are a few males, but most of them were told, like, hey, don't do that again. Or they paid a certain amount of money and were kind of let go. So that's kind of I wanted to find one more name in here. So we have Anne Marie de George. Let's remember her. Let's revere her as a medicine woman. Oh, Mary Spencer. She was accused of because she set her bucket rolling downhill and ran before it. She was able to run faster than a bucket running downhill. So she became a witch. I mean, the blatant obviousness of the disdain for females going way back shows up in things like this. But there are people. So there's Mary Spencer, there is Anne Marie de George, and there's Catherine de Lort. And then we have our own peoples here in the Americas, like Sarah Good and Tituba, who are well-known, quote unquote, harmed witches in the Americas. And Tituba's story is that she had baked a birthday cake for, she was an indentured servant. And so she had made the daughter a birthday cake, not a birthday cake. She'd gotten her moon cycle. So she made a celebratory cake for that. And she was accused of being a witch. And she admitted it. She's like, yeah, I made the cake for her. And she wasn't unalived, but Sarah Good, or Goody is how her name has been, she was eventually unalived. And it's interesting because my late mother was related to her. I found that pretty interesting. Okay, and then we move into witchcraft. So many of these females were wrongfully accused, wrongfully harmed, and much of their, if not all of their wealth and land were taken and usurped. So and this was by the church, predominantly by those who represented the church, or the actual, those who represented the church. And so once all the wealthy people ran out, and once they started kind of going after poor people or unsavory people, so to speak, don't look pretty or are older or whatever reason they had decided, many people started realizing that the women were being treated unfairly. And in order to keep the standard of mistreatment, they had to then also withhold and stand by the idea of witchcraft, meaning practicing anything from medicine, literally, to apparently surfing or running faster than a rolling bucket, which are blatantly obvious horror, like horror film type of things, to then go after them. But the church would excommunicate people and punish people if they didn't believe in witchcraft, because it disproved their authority, and it disproved it would actually go against what they represented, the church as being, right? The church is supposed to be all knowing and aware and a direct line from the creator, God, as they, God. And this would fracture their truth. So they couldn't admit that they had harmed all these women needlessly, females needlessly. So if you actually were in part of the church, and there were many scholars and writers of the time who pointed out that going after these women was totally ridiculous. It was a form of heresy to do that. And it was ruining the kind of sanctuary of what these people were supposed to mean. And it was several men, because men had more position of power back then, and they were dismissed and they were considered heretics. And some of them were shunned. And then we also have reports of people who employed a lot of these prophetesses and females and then dismissed them. Okay, so that's mostly what I'm going to share about witchcraft. Let's see. Okay. So English law was fairly tolerant of witchcraft until the reign of James the First. As late as 1371, a male witch was arrested in Southwark for possessing magical articles, a skull, a grimoire, and a corpse's head for divination. He was released after he promised not to do it again. That's hilarious. And then we have, let's see, another one. For example, in the region of Bonn, a late spring frost of 1610 ruined crops and was officially described as an act of God. But 20 years later, after the witch judges came into the area, the same kind of natural disasters were blamed exclusively on witches. And so you had to have witchcraft be supported in order to do these things to people. It's another form of dehumanization, right? You dehumanize somebody, you turn them into this magical being that is, causing all this trouble. And then suddenly everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's okay. You should be able to do that, right? Okay. And then it has been claimed that witchcraft constitutes, here we go. It has been claimed that witchcraft constituted a coherent underground organization from the beginning, with well-defined chains of command and communication, which books purporting to come from the ancient tradition speak of a brotherhood, not a sisterhood. If you are condemned, fear not, the brotherhood is powerful. They will help you to escape if you stand steadfast. Be sure, if steadfast you go to the pyre, drugs will reach you, and you will feel nothing. You might, you but go to death and what lies beyond the ecstasy of the goddess. So this Oh my gosh, this wording to manipulate many people's. Oh, hi. Hi. Greetings. Thank you for being here. So, and then also, there were few witches who seemed indifferent about their sufferings, and virtually none escaped. So, this is some of the writings of other people. That's why I said it has been claimed. That was written. This is one of the witch books. But this relates to witchcraft and how if you didn't believe, you could get in trouble. But also, if you did believe, you can get in trouble. And if you said you didn't believe, you could be literally accused of being a witch, and then, or somebody on their side. But okay. Let's see if there's anything else I wanted to specifically mention. But ultimately, the church is what kept witchcraft going, because they needed something believable and structured to accuse people of witchcraft, and also to not get in trouble for harming those that they accused of witchcraft, and also to continue kind of the way that we've been taught around what is bad and what is good, what is witchcraft or demonic, and what is then holy and angelic and accepted or good. But it's tricky because without religion, witchcraft would have just kind of turned into what it is, which is just practicing of medicine. Okay. Okay. So, all right. I wanted to read this part too. Here we go. Okay. I want to make sure that. Okay. So then we talk about like more modern, what is claimed as witchcraft. So more modern witchcraft is kind of like what I do, which isn't really witchcraft, but knowing about the body through massage. That could be considered witchcraft because I didn't go to school for it, right? But I did go to school for it. And being able to kind of sense things around other people, that's not explainable. And nature lovers, people who love and respect nature. Those are more modern witches. We do have those who practice maybe some things that are a little more harsh. Yet overall, the more modern day witch is about the earth, how the body and soul connect to the energy of life or creation, and that the female principle is defined equal or greater to than that of a male, which is also how I feel. I think that females are overall, because we do have situations where females have caused a lot of pain for other females, but I actually think that that is also based in patriarchy and comes from this kind of rhetoric where other females will kind of bash or put down other females because of their practices or beliefs, and then decide like she's bad, and then they kind of like gang up on her, so to speak. But overall, most of us recognize, specifically through giving birth or the ability to give birth and caretake, that is a great power. It is recognized to be above the male. Okay. So, yeah, the goddess speaks to modern witches, right? And that's the other part, the goddess. Okay. So, in all of that, so that's most of what I'm going to talk about witches and witchcraft. There's so much information out there. But one of the things I did this week was, because we know a lot about Mary, the mother of who is now called Jesus, I was realizing I didn't know who Muhammad's mother was, Prophet Muhammad's mother, and I don't know like who's Buddha's mother. So we're going to do a little bit of um sharing around that. Okay. So I have done a video a while back ago because one of the things I noticed about religions. Hi, thanks for being here. Hi, beautiful back. Hi, beautifuls, everybody. Um, is that Muhammad's first wife was, I think her name was Kadijah. Yes, Kadijah. And she was 25 years older than he was 20. She was like 15 years old. So the story around Muhammad is that he came from a certain tribe. His mother, Aminah. So they come from Kadijah and Aminah come from the same tribe. And I want to say that again, the same tribe. Because as we're reading certain histories, we'll see that. We'll see how people were described as being from certain tribes rather than being, say, like from a certain country. Okay. And how we viewed tribes in comparison to how we view countries. Okay. So let me see here. For Aminah, she married a man whose name is, I want to make sure I pronounce his first name correctly. Let's see. Okay. Some background noise. Please, while you're holding. Okay. Oh, yes. All right. So a little bit about, no, I'm going to start with Aminah first. So Aminah is rarely spoken of, and she was part of the okay. I did so much research. I got to go back here a little bit. Okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. Oh no. Alat and Aluza and Manat. So those are ancient goddesses from the pre-Islamic time. And okay. There we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. So Aminah had married Allah. Abd Allah. That was his name. So, and I found that interesting because his last name is Allah. So, did the name of Allah come from this ancient tribe? Or was that always one of the names and then you could inherit it through family? These are tribes. So I thought that was interesting. Okay. And shortly after their wedding, she was pregnant with Muhammad, but Abd Allah went journeying and he fell sick. He was in like the Syria area and he died. And then she was alone, supposedly. Aminah gave birth alone in Mecca, reportedly in the house of her father-in-law. Oh, I wanted to mention the tribe. So Banu Zurra. It's one of the noble clans of Quraysh in Mecca. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, so forgive me for that. And her father was one of the leaders of that clan, a respected leader of that clan. And her name means peaceful, safe, and or trustworthy, Aminah. So shortly after Abd Allah had passed away, Aminah gave birth to Muhammad by herself. And then when Muhammad was about 6 or 8 years old, she went to go see some of her late husband's relatives, and then she ended up falling ill and passing away. And so Muhammad's grandparents raised him, or other tribal members raised him. And then with Kadijah, she had been married twice before. And she was very wealthy, and Muhammad was a worker on the place. They say servant, but it doesn't sound like he was a worker on her land, and she had noticed how kind he was. and she proposed to him. She was 40, he was 25. She proposed to him. He says yes. And they stayed married he stayed with only her their entire marriage, and they were married for about 25 years. So she was about 60 when she passed away. And they had two children. They had two children, or more than two children. I want to say two children for sure. And one of them being their daughter, who then gave birth to two males that also became highly recognized within their religion. But I wanted to specifically mention Aminah. And so her ancestry is further back than early Arabian matriarchal lines, and they connect to pre-Islamic goddesses like Alat, Al-Uzza, and Manat. And those names shifted, and even how they were looked at shifted. But there's Muhammad's mother. Okay, so I wanted to share that about Muhammad's mother and his wife. And okay. And then slowly in Arabia, other rulers with more strict ways of looking at Islam came in, because Islam, I shouldn't say more strict, but less kind of upliftment for the females, as far as like prophetesses and somebody who could speak to the insights the way Kadijah did with Muhammad. That started shifting with other groups. It wasn't necessarily their group. Okay. And then we see what we see today. So we have Mary, we know about her. And then Aminah, so now we know about her. And I'm curious to know, who's Buddha's mother? Somebody probably knows, but I don't. Okay. So Buddha's mother was Queen Maya of Sakya, often called Maya Devi, meaning divine illusion, or goddess Maya. And isn't that interesting? Because Maya means illusion. And her story is also pretty fascinating. She's considered the dreaming mother. She was married to King Sudohodana. And they were part of the Sakya clan. So once again, we're seeing how there is a clan or a tribe, and how this all shifted. So it also backs my theory that if once you start removing the females, you change the community, and the community changes, because we all function as matriarchal communal tribes. And this got shifted and broken down. Okay. So so Aminah claimed that she had dreams around Prophet Muhammad, and Maya Devi claimed to have dreams around Buddha. And she had dreamed that a white elephant carrying a lotus flower entered her side, symbolizing purity and awakening. I'm just sharing the stories about the mothers. Okay. It's not getting shut down. And then her story meets the goddess motifs of like trees, lotus, and even the elephant. And then the elephant is an ancient symbol of matriarchal leadership and sovereignty, because not only are the elephant clans led by females, but the matriarch is very important within the elephant clans, so to speak. Okay. And then There's a story around like Buddha was born through Maya, meaning he was born through great illusion. And so she died 7 days after giving birth. And then her sister raised Buddha. Okay. Now, who else is there? Krishna. Let's find out. Who's Krishna's mother? Well, let's see. Wait. Because I actually thought there was a kind of like a link between Krishna and Buddha. Oh no. Okay. So Krishna's mother is Devaki. And that gives me chills. I don't know why. Devaki. And her name means divine one of the gods, divine one, comma, of the gods, or radiant goddess. How come we don't know more about these mothers? I didn't. And I didn't just start looking this up until recently because of this Sundays and my own interest. So she, Devaki, was the princess of Mathura, daughter of King Devaki and sister of Cosma. Cosma was a tyrant who ruled the kingdom. Devaki married Vasudeva, a nobleman of the Yadava clan. So there it is again. We're talking about clans and tribes, okay? On their wedding day, a prophecy was declared that Devaki's eighth child would become the one to destroy Cosma, the tyrant. And so, out of fear, Cosma imprisoned Devaki and her husband. And interesting. It says a pattern that echoes later virgin birth and savior myths where male rulers attempted to suppress divine birth. Okay, so yeah, we see that in many stories. Krishna was the eighth child, and so once he was born, her sister, her husband heard a voice telling him to take the baby across the river to safety to get away from the brother who was the tyrant. And oh, that's right, we're going to look at Moses' mother too. And because that's a similar story to Moses, right? The river and that type of thing. So Krishna was then raised by Yashoda and Nana in the village of Gokul, though Devaki remained his true mother. Okay. Devaki. She represents the divine womb that bursts freedom into the midst of oppression. And she is symbolized by the dawn. And there's a theme of light born in confinement or light born in darkness, right? Or kind of oppressedness. Okay, so we're going to do one more. Okay, so Moses' mother was Jochebed or Yocheved. And she was a Levite. So again, we're talking about a clan or a tribe, right? And this is where many of Israel's priests came from. She married Amram, and she is the mother of Miriam, Aaron, and Moses. I didn't know that. How did I not? How? What? Wow. She's the mother of Miriam? Is this, how is she not? What? I know it's in the, I know it's in the Bible, and I know it's in the Torah about her, but I feel like that's okay. Okay. And her name means Yahweh is glory, or the Lord's honor. How about that? So we know a lot about Moses's birth. She hid him. She sent him on a reed basket down the Nile so that he could escape from, or the Colorado River, depending on which truth you resonate with. And that as a Pharaoh's daughter, oh no, then the Pharaoh's daughter found Moses, and then his mother was actually hired to nurse her own son. She became a nursemaid to her own son out of protecting him from the wrath of another tyrant leader, male tyrant leader. And her name means courageous motherhood, is one of her symbols. And she is considered a divine mother, linking her to many of the other mothers. So there was a time when all these mothers were actually known as like the mother to God or the mother to divineness, whereas then their own sons or their own children kind of usurped not usurped, but overshined or became almost hierarchically higher than their own mothers. And this is something that I do not stand for because no one would be here without their mothers. None of us would be here without our mothers. And whether they were wonderful or not, without them, we would not be here. Okay, so this one isn't quite as exciting as some of the other ones were, but I always just love sharing this information. And so before we go, I'm going to pull a mother. Did I grab the deck? Where did I put it? Oh, here it is. Sacred Mothers and Goddesses card, but I'm also going to do a little bit with some automatic writing cards because that's part of what we did and it is considered witchy. Oh, and so also in some of my writings, because we then figure out that a lot of the stories, the grimoires in my writings and my readings, that a lot of spells, and so I'm going to clarify two things, but a lot of spells and a lot of these stories around demons and the devil were just completely false, completely made up, no substance to the truth of that at all, period. So there is a sense that spells in the way that religion taught it is not real, because what we do know from today's world, and you can call this witchcraft if you wanted to, is studying of metaphysics. So they've seen if you practice certain mantras, humming, singing, dancing, they can literally measure the energy of your body. They can measure how those thoughts can move. So I was telling my sister last night that spells aren't really real, even though, and then somewhere in there I said, I don't get sick. And she says, I feel like that's a spell. And she's right, because metaphysically, even in massage practice, one of the things they tell us is, so you'll hear this in the Bible and you'll hear it in certain practices when it comes to health and well-being. In the Bible, it says, don't claim it. Like, or at least somebody told me that's in the Bible. I haven't read the Bible enough to know if it's in the Bible or not. But I heard a saying like, you don't claim something. Like you don't claim that you're being attacked, or you don't claim that those things are happening, because then you're actually making it happen. So in that way, spells do exist, because you can do that. So also in massage, what I was told is you don't tell somebody, we try not to. People need validation, so I do validate people. But when somebody says, I have, say somebody says, like, I have asthma. Well, you have symptoms of what is called asthma. So you're still validating what you're feeling, but you're not literally claiming it. So, yes, that's where spells do exist. Spells exist in that way. So if somebody utilizes their words and speaking, their heka, their voice, or even writing, which is spelling, to bring something in, that is a real spell. Absolutely. But it's also manifestation. It's also metaphysics. It's also intention, right? We've just, like, medicine and magic have been given those names when they are one and the same. Medicine and magic. When you give someone medicine and they heal, is that also not a miracle? Or is that also not magic? Or is it medicine? You see what I'm saying? So, as far as the stories of the witches of the past, and even some of the witches of today, where they're doing these bad things over there, it's created, it's made up, it's not real. But in the sense of mantras and prayer, all of that are forms of magic and what could be considered witchcraft or spelling, but it's just not called that. And those are very real. I do believe in the power of prayer, in the sense of like praying for something and focus on something, the power of speaking, the power of intentional thoughts. That works. It's real. It's been proven metaphysically. So, and energetically. So it is real. But as far as how we were taught, like raising the devil from the ground, I don't want to say that that's not real, because I don't want to see one day like the devil coming from the ground. But the devil is a name created from Devi, and we could go on and on about that kind of stuff. But just wanted to clarify, like, intention and medicine over spells, right? Okay, same thing. Okay, so I'm going to pull Sacred Mothers and Goddesses card. And then see if I can bring in my own, so I know witchy stuff. Let's see. My own witchy stuff. What's been going on recently? So the earth's been shaking. The earth has really been speaking out a lot. And I've noticed where I'm at here, and once again, I get to watch the birds. There's a real good kind of, I think there is a, like, watch the birds. You can tell a lot what's going on in the world when you watch animals and watch birds. And you're not always given the opportunity to watch them. But if you can, hummingbirds, bees, flying creatures right now, they seem to be kind of oddly, what's the word I want to use? Communicating. I've seen them communicating a little bit more and more with me, and making themselves obvious. So I feel like they are doing that, not just with me, but with other people. And I made a joke that I want to start talking to dolphins and crows because it's illegal, which just proves how important they are and how connected we are with them. We can actually talk to them. All right. Well, I already looked at it. So I'm going to pick one more. I said I'm going to do one, but I'm going to pick one more because I shuffled, but then I looked at the bottom. So here we go. Lakshmi, which kind of fits with everything we were just discussing. And Lakshmi is abundance and good fortune. A lot of blue, a lot of moon. And I don't know quite as much about Lakshmi as I do some of the other goddesses, but I do know that she is a goddess of good luck and beauty. I also think transition. I might be wrong on that one, but let's take a look here. And then I'm going to pull one more. And I'm going to pull one of the automatic writing cards because I think they might go with our reading. We'll see. All right, 20. Lakshmi. Okay. All right, Lakshmi. She is a Hindu goddess and was born from the foam of the ocean, carrying a lotus flower in her hand. However, she is known as a daughter of the goddess Durga. And as you know, that's also another name. I think it's Struga. It starts with an S, but the sound is in there for a witch. Struga, okay? Anyways, she's the daughter of the goddess Durga. Lakshmi married the god Vishnu and gives him the energy to continuously regenerate, which should also just be a huge hint as to the energy of females, okay? She is celebrated in October. Oh, that's why. Each year during Durga Puja, when she is worshipped in all of her forms for 3 days, and during the festival of lights called Diwali, which we just had. Lakshmi is honored daily in Hindu homes and businesses. She is worshipped and prayed for blessings of abundance and prosperity in both the spiritual and material aspects of life. She is also associated with beauty. Okay, that's right. Immortality and the essence of life. Here would be her message, so to speak. Oh, I want to hold up the card. I apologize. Her message is be attentive to opportunities that present themselves. They hold nuggets of prosperity that will manifest in your life now or in the future. Act towards achieving prosperity, trusting that you are supported and your objective will come to fruition. Good fortune is coming your way. Expect a positive turn of events in your life. Your path is clear to receive financial flow. Relax, enjoy life, and share your abundance with others. There is enough for everyone. Unless you're building a ballroom. Just kidding. Keep in mind that prosperity speaks of the richness and abundance that surrounds you in ways that you may not be seeing. Become aware of beauty and joy already present in your life. Allow yourself to experience all that surrounds you with gratitude. Gratitude is a great magnifier and attracts for abundance. And that's, as I was saying, like gratitude is a spell. Gratitude is a spell. I feel like even what I'm doing here is a form of a spell. So they do exist, but they just don't exist in the way that we were taught, in the scary way. I mean, what am I trying to say here? The way that witches and witchcraft have been taught to us, that is not real. But spells are real, and spelling is real, and magic and medicine, that's all real, right? Okay, so without looking, but now I'm going to look. Okay, another card. Priestess of the Healing Waters. So I cannot show the card completely because her body is showing and I can't show that. But Priestess of Healing Waters. So without going into great detail, because mostly it says, I've looked at most of these in the book. They're just short. And you can change the world is basically what it says. You can change the world. This card holds the truth and healing for you and yours. you have experienced darkness and have come through. And darkness is often good. It's not bad in the way that we've been taught it is, because we all come through a form of darkness, okay? Especially the womb. And time again, there have been lessons you have learned, you have healed, and you are healing further as you evolve in this lifetime. And then the waters in general are healing. Water is healing if you can bring water into your life, if you're practicing with your water elements, okay? All right. And honesty and emotions, right? We be honest with our emotions, and we be honest with ourselves and others. And validation is good, okay? And that there are in this, there is a balance with love, faith, and magic. Okay. All right. Now, to go with that, we have one of the cards already up is Power, Magic, and Strength Reminder for Divine Feminine. All right. Is it? This links to your nervous system, somatic and deep wound healing, and elementals. Okay. And then one more from that. Don't doubt yourself. Oh, and we're going to read this one too. Don't doubt yourself or your intuition. Okay. And we have one more. Great Mother requires no worship. Just a reminder. Love, knowledge, healing, growth, but no worship. We don't worship the Great Mother. She doesn't need it. She doesn't require it. All right. Thanks for being here, watching when you do, sharing, listening. I have uploaded several of my pieces of art onto my Etsy. I will be posting the link to my Etsy in this video description below once the live is over. So feel free to check it out if you're interested. Also, you can leave a comment with me on the video if you have expressed interest in any of the art that I've created, or if you're interested. I want to start doing something where once we get a little bit more following and a few more members, and even with the members who are here now, with giving you some gifts, creating some gifts of art and jewelry for you and sending those out to you. I didn't bring it with me, so I won't offer those, but I did bring also my crocheting, and I don't think I've shared much of that, maybe my scarves, but anyhow, some gifts there. All right, so again, thank you for being here. All that you do every day as a great mother yourself, and how important you are just by waking up and just being. I figured out how to do this on my computer. I noticed when I do this on the computer, I didn't get a lot of the bots. It was mostly my followers, so that's pretty cool. Or my followers. That sounds weird. My supporters. All right, until next time. See you next Sunday. Thank you.